You're not a criminal. You're an accountant. That's exactly what makes you so good at this. You spent your career reading spreadsheets, structuring investments, finding legal ways to move money efficiently through complex financial systems. You never carried a weapon. You never broke a law you couldn't explain away with a footnote. And then, in the span of one conversation, all of that expertise gets repurposed for something you never trained for: laundering cartel money to keep your family alive. Level 1. Forced into the game. You're a financial advisor in Chicago. Normal house, normal marriage, normal Tuesday morning commute, the kind of life that doesn't prepare you for anything that's about to happen. Then you get pulled into a room, and the ground disappears from under you. You find out a business partner has been skimming from a cartel client for years. And now that partner is dead, and you're the one sitting across from the people who killed him. You're given a choice, except it's not really a choice. Launder $8 million in 3 months, or your family dies. Not a threat delivered with dramatic flair, delivered flatly, like a business term, because to the people saying it, that's exactly what it is. In that moment, something shifts in how you see your own skill set. The tax code, the shell entities, the years of understanding exactly how money moves through legitimate financial structures. None of that was ever supposed to be a weapon, but it's the only one you have. You're not a criminal walking into this. You're a person whose entire professional skill set just got repurposed for survival, and the line between those two things is about to get very thin, very fast. Level 2, the first move. You move your family to the Ozarks, a region with tourism, cash businesses, and almost no history of serious financial crime drawing federal attention. That absence of history is the whole point. Nobody's watching this closely yet. Your first real move is a riverboat casino. Not because you love casinos, because a casino is one of the cleanest laundering vehicles that exists in plain sight. Cash goes in as chips. Chips get cashed back out as winnings. Nobody can prove a specific dollar was dirty when it's been mixed into thousands of legitimate wagers by strangers who have no idea they're standing next to a laundering operation. You start structuring the cash flows carefully, never depositing enough at once to trigger a currency transaction report, always keeping the revenue mix plausible enough that an auditor glancing at the books sees a functioning casino, not a cleaning operation. Real customers, real gambling, real revenue sitting right alongside the money that isn't real at all. Here's the realization that settles in during this phase, and it's the thing that makes your specific background so dangerous in this context. The financial system isn't some impenetrable fortress designed to catch people like you. It's full of reporting thresholds, oversight gaps, and cash-heavy business models that were never built with laundering in mind, but function almost perfectly for it anyway. You didn't build a criminal enterprise from scratch. You found the seams already built into a legitimate system and started exploiting them methodically. Every dollar you successfully move through that casino is $1 closer to your family staying alive. That math doesn't leave room for hesitation. Level 3. Multiple fronts. One business isn't enough to move $8 million fast enough, so you expand. A funeral home, because funerals involve large cash transactions that nobody questions. Grief doesn't invite scrutiny. A strip club, because it's another cash-intensive business where revenue is notoriously difficult to verify against actual foot traffic. A charity, because donations are one of the hardest categories of money to trace, and because a charitable front comes with the added benefit of public goodwill that makes people even less likely to look closely. Each front serves a specific function in the larger structure, and you're now managing all of them simultaneously, coordinating cash flows across businesses that have nothing in common except the fact that you control all of them, and none of them can be connected to each other on paper. At the same time, you're playing multiple sides that all have competing interests in your survival or your downfall. The cartel wants their money moved faster. The FBI has started circling, close enough that you can feel it without yet knowing exactly what they have. Local politicians want their piece of whatever's flowing through the region, and they're perfectly willing to look the other way in exchange for the right consideration. Here's what this phase teaches you about trust, and it's a lesson that reshapes how you operate from this point forward. Trust becomes a luxury you genuinely cannot afford. Every ally in this structure, the cartel handler, the local fixer, even people who seem aligned with your survival, is also a person with their own incentives that could flip against you the moment it benefits them more. You stop asking who you can trust and start asking only what each person needs from you today. Level 4. The family. At some point, the operation stops being something you're doing alone to protect your family and starts becoming something your family is actually doing with you. Your spouse starts handling logistics they were never trained for, signing documents, managing appearances, learning the specific language required to sound legitimate in front of people asking questions. Your kids start noticing things they're too young to fully process, but old enough to sense are wrong. The tension at dinner, the unfamiliar visitors, the way certain topics get shut down mid-sentence. You tell yourself you're protecting them by keeping them close, by controlling exactly what they know and when they know it. But somewhere in that justification, a harder truth sits underneath it. You're not just laundering money anymore. You're turning the people you love most into participants in something that could destroy all of you if it unravels. This is the moment where the moral cost stops being abstract. It's not a number on a ledger. It's your child learning to lie convincingly to a teacher about where you were last weekend. It's your spouse signing a document they know is fraudulent because refusing isn't actually a real option anymore. The financial risk was always survivable in theory. That's what the money was for. The family cost isn't nearly as recoverable. Once your family understands what you actually do, and worse, once they start doing it alongside you, that version of normal life you were trying to protect is already gone, regardless of how the rest of this plays out. Level 5. The pressure. Every single day becomes an exercise in constant, exhausting calculation. Who do you trust today, and who might sell you out by tomorrow? Who needs to be paid off, managed, or quietly removed from the equation entirely? Which conversation needs to happen in person? Which one can never happen on a phone that might be tapped? Which lie needs to stay perfectly consistent across 3 different audiences who can never compare notes? You're staying one step ahead of federal investigators, one step ahead of cartel impatience, one step ahead of local officials who are starting to ask questions that used to be easy to deflect. But being one step ahead means you're also permanently one step from total collapse because there's no margin left in any of these relationships for a single mistake. Here's the realization that arrives somewhere in this phase, and it's more unsettling than anything the cartel has said to you directly. You've become more dangerous than the people you're technically working for. You're not simply following orders anymore, executing someone else's plan under duress. You're the one calculating angles, structuring outcomes, and increasingly deciding who stays useful and who becomes a liability that needs to be handled. The accountant who got pulled into this to save his family has become someone who thinks fakes and contingencies and leverage as a default mode all day, every day. That shift happened gradually enough that you never noticed exactly when it occurred. Level 6. When the system fights back. Eventually, the pressure from every direction starts converging at once. The FBI investigation, which had been circling at a comfortable distance, starts closing in with real urgency. Subpoenas, surveillance, informants inside your own network, feeding information you can't control. The cartel, which has been patient as long as the money kept flowing, starts running out of patience the moment any delay looks like it might be permanent. Local politicians who'd been comfortable taking money quietly start distancing themselves the moment your operation looks less like a safe bet and more like a liability. That could take them down too. You realize, somewhere in the middle of managing all three fronts simultaneously, that you were never actually just fighting the cartel or just fighting federal investigators. You've been fighting an entire system, regulatory, criminal, and political. That is in its combined weight, specifically designed to eventually catch exactly what you've built. That's not paranoia. That's the honest mathematics of the situation. Every reporting requirement you evaded, every relationship you leveraged, every front business you structured, all of it left some trace, however small, and traces accumulate. The system doesn't need to catch every mistake. It just needs enough of them to add up. The cost of survival at this level isn't measured in dollars anymore. It's measured in how much risk you're carrying at any given moment, stacked on top of risk you were already carrying from the week before, with no real way to ever bring the total back down to zero. Level 7. The legacy. You've survived. You've laundered millions. In whatever sense matters to the people who forced you into this, you've built something that functions. But sitting with what's actually left behind, the picture looks very different from the empire it might resemble on paper. You're not just a money launderer at this point. You've become something closer to a case study, proof of exactly how far a legitimate financial skill set can be bent before it breaks entirely, and proof of how completely a normal life can be dismantled once someone with the right expertise gets forced into the wrong incentive structure. The legacy isn't the casino, the funeral home, or the millions successfully moved through structures you built under duress. The legacy is what happened to the people around you in the process. A family that learned to lie fluently, relationships built entirely on leverage instead of trust, and a version of yourself that thinks in contingencies now as naturally as you once thought in tax deductions. That's the actual cost of survival in a story like this, not the money, the moral architecture of who you had to become to keep the money moving.